I think all of this is far overblown. Bitcoin is in a totally okay place. Of course, quantum theoretically is a threat, and of course, the Bitcoin community should work on it. But no one's refuting that it is theoretically a future threat, and Bitcoiners are working on it. I think the gravity of it being like an impending thing that can crash Bitcoin in the next few years is way overblown, totally misrepresented. And the fact that people say the Bitcoiners aren't valuing the idea of quantum and that the development community isn't thinking about it, isn't developing potential solutions, all of that's just a lie.
Are we cooked? That's the question quietly spreading across both the crypto world and the broader tech industry right now. For years, quantum computing has been treated as a distant, almost theoretical threat to Bitcoin, something for the future, not urgent. But that narrative is starting to crack. Some of the biggest tech giants on the planet, Google, Amazon, IBM, and Alibaba, are aggressively building quantum systems. And recently, Microsoft announced a major breakthrough with its Majorana 1 quantum chip, powered by topological qubits. At the same time, a research firm called Project 11 just ran a global experiment designed to answer one question: can quantum computers actually break the cryptography that secures Bitcoin? And the results are raising eyebrows. In April 2025, Project 11 launched a 1 Bitcoin bounty, the Q-Day prize, challenging anyone to break an elliptic curve cryptographic key using Shor's algorithm. And last month, they announced a winner. An independent researcher successfully derived a private key from a public key using quantum hardware. Bitcoin relies on ECDSA, elliptic curve cryptography, to secure wallets, and in theory, a powerful enough quantum computer running Shor's algorithm could reverse that process, exposing private keys, and potentially putting hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin at risk. In fact, estimates suggest over 6 million Bitcoin could be vulnerable if this becomes practical. But here's where things get complicated. The key that was broken was just 15 bits. Bitcoin uses 256-bit encryption. And that gap is massive. So while Project 11 argues this is proof that quantum attacks are moving from theory into reality, and possibly faster than expected, many experts across both crypto and traditional tech are pushing back hard, calling the experiment misleading, overstated, or even irrelevant at a real-world scale. So what actually happened here? Was this a genuine breakthrough, or just a controlled lab demonstration dressed up as something bigger? In this video, we're going to break it all down: what the experiment really achieved, how close quantum computers actually are to threatening Bitcoin, and what top voices like Michael Saylor and Jack Mallers are saying about whether your Bitcoin is truly at risk. If you want a clear, no-hype analysis on where this is all heading, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and watch this all the way through. Thanks, and enjoy the video. Let's start with the official announcement from Project 11. Project 11 awards won Bitcoin Q-Day prize for largest quantum attack on elliptic curve cryptography to date. Researcher breaks 15-bit ECC key on publicly accessible quantum hardware in a 512x jump from the previous public demonstration. Project 11 today awarded the Q-Day prize, a 1 Bitcoin bounty, to Giancarlo Lelli for breaking a 15-bit elliptic curve key on a publicly accessible quantum computer. The result is the largest public demonstration to date of the attack class that threatens Bitcoin, Ethereum, and over $2.5 trillion in SEC-secured digital assets. According to Project 11, the winning experiment didn't come from a government lab or a secret quantum facility. It came from an independent researcher using cloud-accessible quantum hardware. That alone is part of what makes this notable. It suggests that this kind of experimentation is becoming more accessible. The researcher used a variant of Shor's algorithm to derive a private key from a public key, targeting what's known as the elliptic curve discrete logarithm problem, the mathematical foundation behind Bitcoin and most blockchain security systems. And importantly, this builds on earlier work. Back in 2025, an engineer using an IM quantum system managed to break a 6-bit key. This new result, 15 bits, is a 512x increase in scale. So yes, progress is happening. At the same time, theoretical research is also advancing quickly. Some recent estimates suggest that breaking real-world encryption, like Bitcoin's 256-bit keys, might require far fewer quantum resources than previously thought. In some cases, projections have dropped from hundreds of thousands of qubits down to potentially tens of thousands under certain architectures, and this is where Project 11 makes its boldest claim: that the gap between today's demonstrations and real-world attacks may no longer be a fundamental limitation of physics, but an engineering challenge. In other words, not if, but how soon. They also point out that millions of Bitcoin already sit in wallets with publicly exposed keys on-chain, meaning that if quantum capability reaches that level, those funds could theoretically be targeted. But not everyone is buying this narrative, because almost immediately after the announcement, critics began pointing out a major issue. The method used to break the 15-bit key may not actually demonstrate a meaningful quantum advantage at all. In fact, analysis from the community suggests that the result could be replicated using classical brute force, essentially guessing and verifying, without needing a quantum computer in the first place. Beyond that, there's the sheer scale problem. A 15-bit key has just over 32,000 possible combinations, something that can be cracked relatively quickly, even with basic computing power. Bitcoin's 256-bit keys, on the other hand, are exponentially larger, by a factor so extreme it's almost impossible to intuitively grasp. Each additional bit doubles the difficulty, meaning the jump from 15 bits to 256 bits isn't linear, it's astronomical. So while this experiment shows progress in a very narrow sense, many experts argue it doesn't meaningfully move us closer to breaking real-world cryptography. At least, not yet. Here is Strike CEO Jack Mallers' reaction to the experiment. Buy $10,000 of Bitcoin on a regular exchange. It grows to $60,000. That $50,000 profit? You could owe $10,000 or more in capital gains tax. Now do the same trade inside a Roth IRA with iTrustCapital. That growth? Tax-free. You keep the full $50,000. Same crypto. Completely different outcome. iTrustCapital lets you hold crypto in a self-directed IRA, trade 24/7, and secure your assets with institutional-grade custody. You can also hold gold, silver, and stake certain assets. Real U.S. customer support. $100 bonus when you fund through the link below. In crypto, structure beats timing. Every time.
So I've been around Bitcoin soft forks, debates within the developer community. The developer community is doing great with quantum. There's tons of progress to point to. There's tons of different proposals. And on the quantum side, just for this episode, because I have to keep it short, the way I would explain it to the common man on the street is, quantum needs to be divided into two distinct categories. There's the software side of quantum, and there's the hardware side of quantum. The software side is making tons of progress, which is cool. At the end of the day, I'm not rooting against quantum. It's cool, okay? Now, what runs the software, quantum hardware, is so far behind. Like, so far behind. The software, by the way, isn't necessarily in a place that's dangerous either, but it is making progress, which is cool. But when I tell you like orders of magnitude to explain to the common man on the street, orders of magnitude behind. So combined, is quantum a near-term threat? No. Okay? So when I read this tweet and it says, they offered a Q-Day prize, 1 Bitcoin awarded for breaking a 15-bit ECC key with Shores billed as a 512x jump on public quantum hardware. That's the key part. Is it's billed as this massive 500x leap on quantum hardware, okay? So you guys can understand the distinction. The hardware piece is the one that's behind, and this sold as like this massive leap, okay? Then, I guess this guy, I don't know who this is. I'm not talking shit. I have no idea. I just know what was published, this bounty thing, and I think it was misleading. This guy swapped the quantum calls for a random number generator and got the same results. It gets worse. They had courted Google to be involved. He declined and expressly flagged this as a way it was likely going to end. They ran the comp anyway, picked a winner who fell straight into the predicted trap, and are now defending the results on X. The competition was meant to raise awareness about Q-Day. There have been amazing breakthroughs in the past 12 months, which should have been celebrated. Instead, they've torched their reputation. Again, I don't know if they've torched their reputation. I just know that this was really misleading, total waste of time. I think that the way the community is talking about quantum is misleading, inaccurate, arguably just factually false, and FUD, and waste of time. So this from Robin, Google quantum researcher. This is a quote. This guy, the Google guy, wrote a blog post. You guys should read it. But the quote is, "The fact that Project 11 is boosting these results instead of shunning them has hugely damaged my perception of their credibility." And ultimately, listen, like decisions for Bitcoin of things like, should we freeze Satoshi's coins? I mean, that is arguably one of the most important decisions the Bitcoin project will ever make. That has serious implications for property rights. These decisions, it's not about people can, of course, anyone can speak their opinion. Say what you want about quantum, okay, of course. But upselling these threats and misleading what is, the accurate state of the developer community addressing these things, there's plenty of really good proposals. Ultimately, as Bitcoin does, we need consensus.
Strategy CEO Michael Saylor also recently discussed quantum computing with Natalie Brunell and what threat it poses to Bitcoin. Here is a clip from the conversation.
So first of all, the consensus of the cybersecurity community, broadly held, is that quantum risk, if it exists, is more than 10 years out. It's not this decade thing. Whether or not there will be a quantum threat or a quantum risk is a question that is yet to be decided, but there's certainly no consensus that there is any threat right now or that there will be a threat materializing anytime soon. Should a quantum risk materialize, at that point, then you're going to see an upgrade in the software that runs the global banking system, the global internet, consumer devices, all the crypto networks, the Bitcoin network, everything digital, the AI networks, all of those networks that we rely on today, whether they're governmental or financial or consumer or defense related, they're going to get upgraded with post-quantum resistant cryptography. It won't be a surprise. You'll see it coming. We will all see it coming. Bitcoin software, Bitcoin Core version 30. Right now we're debating over upgrading from version 29 to version 30. The software does change. If you've got 30 versions of Bitcoin Core in an asset which is 17 years old, do the math in your head and figure out how long it takes for versions of this stuff to roll out. The nodes will upgrade, the hardware will upgrade, the wallets will upgrade, the exchanges will upgrade. How will they upgrade? Well, wait 10 years, there will be global consensus about the best way to deal with it. There is no global consensus right now because there isn't a credible threat right now, right? So why do I not worry about it? Well, because everybody with anything at stake, whether it's Google or Microsoft or Apple or Coinbase or BlackRock or Strategy or the US government or the Russian government or the EU government or the Chinese government or JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley, they all have to deal with the same issue. We all have digital systems that would be at risk if there was a credible quantum threat. If and when it materializes, I expect that there will be some software or hardware or both reaction to it. The crypto community is actually the most sophisticated cybersecurity community. If you look at the security protocols that are used to move crypto around, right? They're all multi-factor authentication with hardware keys, etc. If you consider the security protocols used to move bank wires around or used to trade stocks, they're orders of magnitude weaker. Right now, I'm not going to elaborate on them for obvious reasons, but anyone that's actually engaged in a stock transaction or a bank wire transaction or a credit card transaction or a check transaction or any kind of consumer finance transaction or communication transaction knows that the steps you go through in order to move Bitcoin, out of cold storage or to transfer it to someone else, especially when you're moving it at scale, are extremely sophisticated. So I think that the crypto security community will be the first, to perceive the threat and to react to the threat.
When you zoom out, what you're really looking at here is a clash between signal and noise. On one hand, there's genuine progress, both in quantum research and in raising awareness about long-term cryptographic risks. And yes, efforts like the Q-Day Prize from Project 11 likely came from a place of trying to push that conversation forward. But on the other hand, as voices like Jack Mallers point out, the way this was presented blurred a critical line between a small-scale experiment and a real-world threat. The reality today is that quantum software may be advancing, but the hardware needed to actually break Bitcoin's 256-bit encryption is still orders of magnitude behind. And according to Michael Saylor and the broader cybersecurity consensus, we're likely still many years, possibly over a decade, away from anything resembling a credible, immediate risk. So framing this as an imminent threat is just noise, or even outright FUD. More importantly, what often gets ignored in these discussions is how aggressively the system is already preparing. Bitcoin isn't static, it evolves. The same network that has gone through multiple upgrades over the years can adopt post-quantum cryptography when the time comes. And it won't just be Bitcoin, it will be the entire global digital infrastructure. Governments, banks, tech giants, and crypto networks all face the same challenge, and billions of dollars are already being invested into solving it. There are active security programs, ongoing research, and a highly specialized developer community constantly stress-testing the system. So the real takeaway here isn't panic, it's perspective. The threat is being studied, debated, and prepared for long before it becomes real. If you made it this far, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications for more breakdowns like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.